I confess I'm kind of a dark person. I see the glass half empty most of the time. I'm a skeptical, sometimes bordering on a cynic. At a particularly bad time in my life, about 15 years ago, I went to therapy. And at the end of the first session, the therapist said, "You're what we call a catastrophizer." I wear that with a badge of honor. I told my wife recently I thought I was becoming a curmudgeon. And she said, "Oh, no, you did that a long time ago." I would call myself a pessimist, but what good would that do, right? All my favorite songs are in minor keys. My Spotify playlist of sad songs is 25 hours long. I kid you not. I like dark chocolate, I like dark coffee, I like dark wine. In fact, my favorite brand of wine is called Pessimist. I have many props today, this first one. So it's a little bit easy for me to say, embrace the darkness, because I embrace it all the time. But seriously though, I love this season. I love the season of darkness. I know many people bemoan it. I embrace it, and I'm hoping by the end of this, you'll be embracing it too. In the words of Jovan Rue, darkness offers us the gift of rest, healing, and hope. It is a darkness of sleep that our bodies are able to heal and rejuvenate. Darkness offers opportunities for beauty and love to live in our lives. I find that in winter, in the short days and the cold which come with it, I have a quieter focus. There's no leaf blowers going in the neighborhood. There's no lawnmowers. You get the occasional snowplow, but I can live with that. I find that music sounds better in my stereo. Coffee tastes better. I feel more reflective, and I'll talk about that some more. And I also love what we see today, which is what Emerson called the frolic architecture of snow. And so it's not just embracing the darkness, but it's embracing winter as well. Now, I don't want to minimize the real hardships of this season for many people. If you're someone who can't drive at night or has difficulty driving in snow, your life can be constrained this time of year. For people who struggle with heating bills, I don't wish upon them cold, but that's a real hardship. People with seasonal affective disorder, very difficult time of year for them. So I don't mean to minimize any of the things that truly affect our lives this time of year that don't do it in June. But I do think that all of us who struggle with winter, whether those are major or minor, can brighten our souls by embracing the darkness. So, and there's no doubt that, although it's a beautiful day out today, we are in the darkest time of year. We're at our latitude, so about halfway between the equator and the North Pole. Our days right now are about 9 hours long. The sun rises about 7:30, it goes down about 4:30. So many people drive to work in the dark and come home in the dark. Excuse me. Now, notice I said that we have 9 hours of daylight, not sunlight, because although today's an exception, this is also the cloudiest time of year. So if the darkness wasn't enough, the day is mostly cloudy. So it sounds pretty gloomy to think about only 9 hours of daylight. But consider this. In the country of Iceland, where I recently visited, they're nudging the Arctic Circle. Right now, they have 20 hours of darkness. In the capital of Iceland, Reykjavik, the sun rises today at 11:30 a.m., so not quite yet, and sets at 3:30. So there are four hours of daylight. So you think our 9 is not enough. And yet, if you look at all those global surveys, those well-being surveys they do every so often, Iceland comes out as one of the happiest countries in the world. So I think of that as the Iceland paradox. How is it possible that they have such gloomy winters and yet they're the happiest people? Well, I have 3 theories. One of them is Icelanders lie. They're actually gloomy people but don't want to admit it. And so when those global surveys come out, they say, "Oh yeah, we're happy." My second theory is that all those global well-being surveys we hear about are conducted in June. And in June in Reykjavik, you have 20 hours of sunlight. And of course you feel happy. because you forgot all about the 4 hours in December. But I think it's something more than that. I think the Icelanders have figured out, as many of the Scandinavian countries have, who have long, dark winters, they figured out a way to be happy and embrace the darkness. And in Iceland, there's a couple ways to do that. First of all, Iceland is this thin crust of land on boiling water and lava. And almost every home is heated with geothermal energy. It's bubbling up from the ground. And so throughout Reykjavik, and I think throughout the whole country, you'll find public swimming pools that are heated by geothermal energy all year. And so in the winter, when you finish work at 5:30 and it's been dark for 2 hours, you grab your bathing suit and you head to one of these pools and you socialize and you soak in the warmth and you look at the sky. And it's a very beautiful experience, and it's a very social experience, which I think is critical to one of the ways that Icelanders have figured out to be happy in the winter. There's also something that they call, and I'm going to mangle this, I know, Jólabókaflóð. And it's basically a flood of books at the end of the year. Iceland produces most of their books in the last couple months of the year. And Iceland has the highest per capita rate of book printing and reading. They're serious readers. And this thing called Jólabókaflóð is on Christmas Eve, you give everyone a book in your list, and then you stay up all night reading it. Well, I can make it till 9 o'clock maybe. But it's a wonderful tradition, and in fact, our family has been doing it for quite a while, maybe about 10 years or so. We've incorporated Jólabókaflóð into our winter solstice and Christmas celebration. And so this year, I told you I had props. This year, one of the books I got was a book about wind, Breath of the Gods by Simon Winchester, one of my favorite authors. And about 10 years ago when we started this, I actually made little laminated bookmarks for everybody in our family that say, Happy Jólabókaflóð. So I had no idea that we were embracing the darkness with Iceland traditions until now. So like Icelanders, I tend to read more in the winter. And I read not just more, but more in depth. One of the things I pull out every winter, it's a book called Winter, A Spiritual Biography of the Season. And it's essays and poems about winter, and mostly about what a wonderful time of year it is and can be. And so this one sits on, from November through February, it sits on my bookshelf along with our Jólabókaflóð books that I try to get through. And so in winter, I tend to be able to read more in-depth stuff. So our book club at the Kirkland Art Center, or Kirkland Library, is going to tackle Democracy in America, which is a book we've all said we want to read. It was written in the 1840s by a Frenchman who came and looked at this American experiment of democracy. It's a very heavy book. I figured, okay, let's tackle it in winter. So we're going to be reading that. Actually, it's going to take us 2 months to do. But we figured none of us could possibly pay attention to that book in summer. But this time of year, we feel that focus. I think we all agreed this is the time of year when you sit down and with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, or whatever, and you can tackle Alexis de Tocqueville. So I'll let you know how that goes in a couple months. I also find winter to be a time of quieter meditation. There's less going on outside. Stephanie Noble, a writer, said, "Dark is the gestation of our deep and knowing self. Dark is the cave where we rest and renew our soul." And I feel like that in these dark days, that there's a certain renewal, there's a certain, and it's also kind of the time of the year, right? It's the beginning of the year, and we're reflecting upon the old year and looking at the new. And I think there's, that's part of this whole reflection of the darkness and more of a focus upon ourselves. So for every morning, first thing I do is I get up, I come downstairs, I make that dark coffee, and I read. It's year round. And I like reading on the patio in the summer, don't get me wrong. But in the winter, we have the glow of lights, and we leave our holiday lights up for months. And I have a special cup I use. It's got stars and moons on it. We got a whole set of these. And so these come out in November and they stay out until March or so. And there's something about having a special cup for that special coffee that makes it a little more, everything you do just that little bit more meaningful and a little more deliberate and intentional. And one of the things that I do in the winter when I sit in the chair is I have blankets. And this is my father's Navy blanket. It kept him warm when he was on the ship in the early 1950s. And I pull this and I bring this out every year and I put it over and sometimes it gets too warm. But it reminds me of him, and it's something that only can happen in the winter because you put this on in the summer, you're gonna roast. So it makes me feel closer to him, and this is gonna get passed on to my son and hopefully on and on. So that is, you can't beat that feeling, you know? I think music sounds better. I love music, I listen to music all the time. In the summer, when I'm driving home and the windows are down, I wanna hear the Killers. But in the winter, I wanna hear Beethoven. I wanna hear a string quartet or a symphony. Last year, about a year ago, I finally upgraded my stereo system. My wife got me a new turntable, and I got some used speakers, and I went to this store that sold speakers in Janesville, and the guy, he said, what kind of music do you listen to? I said, well, if I'm gonna listen to stereo and vinyl, I'm gonna listen mostly to classical. And he said, I have 2 boxes of classical albums that I can't sell them, take them. So I took, and I was just like a kid in a candy shop. I came home with the entire Beethoven sonatas, all 32 of them, all 16 string quartets, all 9 symphonies. My wife was not near as excited as I was. I said, there's all 32 of them, all of them. And in the summertime, at 7 o'clock in the evening, I put this on, but it's just not quite the same as 7 o'clock in the evening in December or January. And this is one of my favorite albums. It's called December by George Winston. You've probably heard it. You can only play this during December. It's not allowed to play it anytime. So I got a couple more days, and I got to put it away. But again, it's one of those, it's a gorgeous album. It's a new age piano. The song Joy based on Bach is just gorgeous. So that you can only hear in December and sounds so much better because it's limited and because it's dark, and you're listening by candlelight to this gorgeous album that you wouldn't listen to in the summer. So the other thing I like about winter is I get to bring out all my winter clothes, which I love to wear. My fleece jackets and my fleece pants and the LL Bean pajamas. And this one, which my kids bought this for me at one of those kiosks in the mall 25 years ago. And it's just, I love it. And I can't put it on here, it's too warm. But it's just I took the dogs out this morning and just this, and it was 8 degrees outside. And it's just, I put it away in March and I bring it out, and it's just one of those things that makes me feel good about my kids, my family. It keeps me warm, and it feels like this is embracing the darkness. When you wear this thing, you're truly embraced. I think that's my last prop, I'm not sure. I did not bring my LL Bean coat, which actually needs its own seat on the plane. It's so bulky. They say there's no bad weather, just bad gear. So as long as you're bundled up, which is mostly true, as long as you're bundled up, you can go outside. Another thing about this time of year is the stars are brighter. There's no humidity in the air. It's very clear. You can see the stars much clearer. My favorite folk singer, David Wilcox, has a song called If It Wasn't for the Night. And it goes, if it wasn't for the night so cold this time of year, the stars would never shine so bright, so beautiful and clear. And it just so happens that the best meteor show of the year is the Geminids, which peak in mid-December. So we just, had I given this on the 7th, I could have given you an advance warning. Also, one thing I love about this time of year, there are no mosquitoes. None, not one. I love that. And no yard work. I'm not a yard work fan. The other thing about this time of year is that assuming you can get past the driving in the dark and the occasional snowfall is I feel more social, which is odd, and I feel both more reflective, but also more willing to go. I meet friends for coffee more, and we go to dinner with folks more. I think partly because you need to feel like you're getting out of the house because that darkness is impinging on you. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the summer. I love riding my bike at 5:30 in the morning in June, and I love having my coffee on the porch, and I love having dinner on the patio with friends. Although we bought one of those in 2020 when everything shut down. We bought one of those patio heaters, and we had the best winter solstice celebration we've ever had. We're on the patio. We cleared the snow, and we had a fire going. So it was truly embracing that darkness. So just as we can love the summer and the winter. Like I love the Killers and Beethoven. You don't have to. Loving the winter doesn't mean you don't love the summer too. So I encourage you to embrace the darkness, to find what you love doing most in the dark, in the cold. But if that's too much of a stretch, if the cold and the short days and the driving to work and home in the dark is too much, just remember that days are already getting longer. In that book I just showed you, the spiritual biography of winter, there's one of the quotes in it is, "Winter is the seat of what will come, the freeze that reminds us of the thaw, the hope pensively waiting, the moment pausing, the rhythms at its nadir, but poised to begin its upward swing." Thank you.